Hello everyone and welcome to another video talking about the great DPS nerf. First they tried it with our companions and then they tried it with us. Now they're never happy unless they're screwing us, it seems BioWare at the moment. Right, so how has it been since the great character nerf? Has anyone struggled to clear content or struggled with any content? We should point out that for solo players, this damage nerf means nothing. Really, because the solo mode is so easy, it doesn't matter, okay? Most of the damage that was nerfed was crit damage, so it wasn't a flat-out nerf to, you know, most of the time story fights don't last long enough to produce, you know, results either way. You're gonna kill something either way. You can still use your 2-button sniper rotation on trash. It works fine. You can see here we're doing the Gree event as a power tech. Pyro power tech. The pyro power tech. Because pyro, why not? Why aren't you going to use pyro? We're cleaving. We're fighting trash. We aren't going to play tactics if we're doing trash. Not that it makes a huge difference, to be honest, which spec we pick. We could do it in tank spec if we want. The damage output makes no difference, really. It makes minimal difference. Star Fortress is not going to make Star Fortress any harder, to be honest. Maybe make it last a bit longer, which is fucking boring. Great, thanks for that, BioWare, for making Star Fortress, eking it out, you know, because it's a really boring flashpoint, that. It really is. Oh, God, there's too much trash in it. There's far too much trash. To be honest, someone said, "Oh, you want the game to be easy, but you don't want the companion, your character, to be nerfed." It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference. Solo content. Star Fortress can still do it. Can still solo it in tactic spec. It's not fun to do in tactic spec by any means. I did do it in tactic spec. I wasn't gonna do footage of it because it took 55 minutes to do, which was too fucking long, and I ain't repeating it again. No way am I doing that again. Never again. Plasma, it's okay. You can do it in like 45 minutes in Plasma, just because it has much better cleave. But yeah, I'm never doing that again. Okay, we're not doing Star Fortress again because it's a pain in the arse. I mean, the rewards aren't worth doing it for. Okay, the content is pretty bad. It's not that it's hard. I'm not complaining that it's hard. It's just that there's too many trash mobs and they have so much health. I mean, they don't kill you, but jeez, it's just like, come on, just die. If you're not gonna kill me, do something interesting with the design. It's really just a corridor, and that's the whole Knights of the Fallen Empire expansion. They were right, IGN, they were right. It is just a linear corridor after corridor after corridor full of trash, okay, and they were right there. I agree with what they were saying there, so I'm not against it. I'm not against them saying that, certainly, but we need to do better than that. I mean, if you look at the previous flashpoints that they've had, and even the previous solo content that they've had, it was way better than this. I think that what the problem is with this solo content, I think it stems from Oricon, because Oricon had some of the... It was kind of shit in terms of there was too many trash mobs. Okay, far too many trash mobs on Oricon. But the thing it got right was the solo difficulty. Oricon had it right with the 3 solo bosses. And again, there was always an option to group up for them if you couldn't do them. The Corrupted Bothrian Beast was fine. It was okay. It did a mechanic, which you had to deal with. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that as a mechanic, okay? Having to deal with the interrupt, you had the, what was it, the Subteroth, the Corrupted Elder Subteroth, that's what it was called. You had to do a stun, otherwise it would do massive damage to it. It became susceptible to stuns, and you had to stun it. Simple, really. And then you had Commander Zoron, who you had to stun him, and you had to interrupt one of his abilities. I don't remember which one you had to interrupt and which thing you had to stun. I don't think it mattered in the end. Also having a class that was good in CC, such as a Infiltration Shadow or a Scrapper Scoundrel, was quite nice there, because of course you got extra stuns and extra interrupts there, so it came in quite handy. But overall, not very hard. The Heroic on Oricon probably provided the ultimate test for solo players, really. If you wanted the ultimate test, solo the Heroic 2 on Oricon. It's still quite difficult, but with the God Mode companions, it's not quite as difficult as it was. At the time, on level, that was a fun thing to solo. But I think Oricon, in terms of its three solo bosses, had the difficulty right. They had it right. It was, you know, if you couldn't down those three bosses, it was a real learn to play your class, essentially. Because every single class, people say, oh, it was impossible for a Juggernaut, it was impossible for a melee class. And it's like, no, it wasn't. It was harder for some classes, okay? Harder for some classes. Was it harder for tanks? Not really. I did it as a Vanguard tank. Didn't find it that hard. I did it as a commando. I showed you me doing it as a commando in 148 gear. And we didn't die on any of those bosses. It was very, very simple. So not a question of gear. Not a question of class, really. Because I did it with every class. I've done that with every single class. I haven't done it with every single spec, mind you. But, I mean, if a Scrapper Scoundrel can do it, anyone can do it, really. I mean, seriously, if a Scrapper Scoundrel can walk in and face roll the corrupted Bothrian Beast, anyone can. Now, we're actually quite decent now. Not by virtue of being decent as a Scrapper Scoundrel, but by all the other specs getting nerfed has made us slightly decent now as a melee DPS. So there you go. Scrapper is ahead of Tactics, weirdly. Weirdly ahead of Tactics. That's weird. I don't want to live in that world where Scrapper is actually ahead. I guess they didn't nerf Scrapper because they forget it exists, essentially. They just forget about it. It's like, oh, we have a Scoundrel? Really? We better nerf it. We better, you know, better not nerf it down any further, of course. I think it was nerfed initially. I think it does have the 10% crit multiplier anyway. So that was nerfed below. Maybe it's performing above what they're expecting. We don't want that. We now don't want to be the flavor of the month class, really, in SWTOR. You never want to be, because you're gonna get nerfed. Okay, so the solo difficulty, I think, was correct there. Shadow of Revan was a complete joke, and it was insultingly bad. Okay, Revan. Okay, you had Revan. This is Revan we're fighting. You know, this is one of the most important lore characters in the Old Republic era. And what did you do? You fucking ruined it. I know everything they did throughout Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, and the Revan novel as well, built Revan up to be a badass. Everything they built for Revan was taken apart in SWTOR. Okay, he was a really easy Flashpoint boss, a ridiculously easy Flashpoint boss in the Foundry. He was a really easy solo boss, and he didn't appear enough in Shadow of Revan when he had his own expansion. You know, he wasn't even really the star of his own expansion. It was mostly Lana and Theron that were the stars of his own expansion, really. I would like to have seen more of Revan crop up when he, you know, I'd like to see more of him. You see him at the end of Rise of the Hutt Cartel, at the end of the Forged Alliances storyline, and then you don't really see him for most of the expansion, and he's just a ranting, raving lunatic when you do fight him, and then you find his light side spirit, of course, as well. But yeah, it was so bad. I mean, the Revan fight should have been epic in solo mode. It should have been epic in all encounters. And it wasn't. And here we are in Knights of the Fallen Empire, where we have a new big villain, new big bad villain, Oricon. Okay, the problem with Oricon is he's built up to be this uncompromising sort of guy who will stop at nothing to achieve his ambitions, okay? He killed his own brother, you know, for God's sake, to achieve his ambition, okay? This is a guy that will stop at nothing, and he's unstoppable. And don't forget, him and his brother conquered, you know, they attacked Korriban, they killed Sith, they killed Jedi, they killed Jedi Masters, you know, they killed Dark Council members, did they? I don't know, but certainly they are quite a formidable guy, and then you fight him, and it's just as disappointing as Revan. It's not disappointing, I mean, you can't go AFK and win, but there's no real mechanics. He does do circles on the ground that you can get out of, but to be honest with you, they don't really do that much damage, and you get healed at random points. I just randomly had full health at one point. The second time you fight him, there is healing stations. Why is there healing stations? Can't we just avoid getting hit by him a lot of times, or minimize the damage that he does with defensive cooldowns. I'd like to see something like that in game, you know, something that, you know, have mechanics to the fight, you know, because that's why I say Oricon was right. Oricon, you know, Commander Zoran didn't have, you know, healing stations and didn't need them. Okay, just interrupt him, just stun him when he's about to hit a big hit. Maybe you could hide behind some things or something like that. Stand in a certain place to avoid taking hits by him. You know, and that would be okay. You know, because you've got classes that have so much mobility now. You've got your mad dashes and your sage teleports and whatnot. Every single class was given something to increase their mobility in 4.0. So, you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea to use that mobility. We don't utilize our class skills. You could sit there and spam your basic attack and beat Oricon. You know, well, you don't beat him story-wise. And that's, I think, one of the other big problems is the gap between story and gameplay. And I think it's never addressed. You know, the Zakul Eternal Empire is built up to be this unstoppable force. They conquered the Republic. They conquered the Sith Empire as well. You know, they blockaded every single planet in Republic and Imperial space. So why do they just fall over? I mean, why do the Sky Troopers just fall over with 2 buttons? When I see them, you can just blow them over. It's a huge disconnect. You know, I want us to feel kind of helpless, kind of hopeless. I don't want it to be Dark Souls hard, but I just want to pay attention to what's going on. I don't want to sit there and just face roll everything, because that's boring. That is boring as hell. So yeah, I think solo content needs to be tuned upwards, certainly, and not to the point where it's impossible. You know, I think, again, to the level of Oricon is what I would say. The Oricon solo bosses were correct, and the people who can't do that should learn how to play their class. You know, as simple as that. Every class has something to deal with that. You have a defensive cooldown. Every class has a defensive cooldown. Every class has a breakout stun move for when you get stunned. And stunning is not a mechanic. I'm sorry, but it's not. Having things stun lock you is not a good mechanic, BioWare. It really isn't. So you got stun breaker. You've got your crowd control. Some classes don't have crowd control. That is a problem. You know, some classes, every class has defensive cooldowns. Every class has an interrupt. They do differ in terms of their cooldown though, so that would have to be taken into account. But anyway, we've gone on long enough now. So anyway, that is all for this video. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon. And goodbye.